All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So yesterday we talked about offensive free agent targets for the Jets. Today we're talking about defensive free agent targets for the Jets. Okay, I'm really excited. Yes, of course, the Jets, from a statistical / ranking standpoint, are not very good on the defensive side of the football. They have a lot of holes. They have a lot of issues. But the good news, we have a lot of money in cap space, and there are so many free agents at positions of need for the Jets. So let's start with linebackers, right? Linebacker was a really disappointing positional group for the Jets last season. You felt like across the board, everybody underperformed. Quincy Williams is now a free agent. Jamien Sherwood's getting paid a ton of money. It didn't really live up to the contract extension, right? Again, super disappointing. But with that said, there are a bunch of linebacker targets, both in free agency and the draft too, by the way. But let's talk about, I would say, probably one of the best linebackers in football, one of the best, you can argue the best free agent on the open market, in Devin Lloyd. Now, Devin Lloyd, I feel like would be such a fantastic fit for the Jets defense because he's so well-rounded, right? He can come up and stop the run. He can communicate very well. He's athletic and can move on his feet. He can read quarterbacks' eyes. He's absolutely fantastic in coverage. He has good sideline-to-sideline speed. When we look at his production, he had 5 interceptions on the season. 5 freaking picks for a linebacker. That is insane production, right? Absolutely insane. Not to mention he had 74 tackles on the season as well. Devin Lloyd, you know what's kind of funny about Devin Lloyd is when people talk about some of the better linebacker prospects in this upcoming class, whether it's, man, take your pick, Sonny Styles. CJ Allen's kind of a different type of player, but CJ Allen's definitely in the mix of a potential first-round linebacker. Jacob Rodriguez, Texas Tech. Like there's a lot. Anthony Hill, Texas. There's a lot of really solid linebacker prospects. But it's so funny because when people specifically talk about Sonny Styles and Jacob Rodriguez, they always say, you know, if they can be a Devin Lloyd, that would be a win. That would be the goal, right? If they can put up Devin Lloyd types of numbers. And Devin Lloyd's a free agent. Devin Lloyd could actually be had in the market. Now, the problem is, because he's so good, because he's coming off such a great season, and again, one of the best linebackers in the game, he's probably going to sign a massive deal. Now, the projection right now, 4 years, $76 million. That is a lot of cash to throw at somebody. Granted, if the Jets do bring Lloyd in, the linebacker room is going to be so much better. I think naturally it's going to be a lot better too, just with the fresh start on defense. But Devin Lloyd's an interesting option. My only pushback with Lloyd isn't really with Lloyd himself. It's with Sherwood, right? Because Sherwood's making all this money. Are the Jets really going to dump so much money into Devin Lloyd? And all of a sudden we would have, if the math is correct, a top 3 highest paid linebacker duo in the game. Now, of course, we also have to talk about Alex Anzalone, someone who's been linked to the Jets over and over again. Why? Because A, the Jets need help at linebacker. B, it's not looking like he's going to be brought back to Detroit because Detroit has a ton of free agents and only so much available cap dollars. And you kind of feel like there's been a bit of a falling out, right? Especially with the Lions drafting Jack Campbell, who's just an absolute stud, you know, coming out of Iowa. I just don't really think that the Lions are going to be bringing Anzalone back. Glenn and Anzalone have a really good relationship. Anzalone has talked so much about how he just loves Aaron Glenn's message. Of course, those two were together back with New Orleans. Anzalone's a culture setter, a bar setter, right? He comes in and holds players to a winning standard, which I love. And despite Anzalone being 32 years old, he is still a well-rounded linebacker. He brings the juice on Sundays. He can drop into coverage, make plays there, blow up tight ends. One of my favorite things about Anzalone is he's such a pound for pound. He's so powerful and strong. Like, you can pick a tight end in football, pick a running back, pick a wide receiver. If those players catch a pass over the middle of the field, like a curl, you know, an inbreaker, whatever, he can just flat out stick players, right? When he gets a hold of someone over the middle of the field, they're not moving. Alex Anzalone is not being trucked over. And again, he's athletic in space. He can sniff out screens. He can sniff out, misdirection stuff at the line of scrimmage. He is, I would say, a cheap option that, again, knows Aaron Glenn. He knows Brian Duker. He fits the defense. And I also think that Anzalone would come in and be an extension of the coaching staff. So, if you're talking literally about a $40 million difference between him and Devin Lloyd, like that's a pretty significant margin. Now, of course, Lloyd is the better player, but for the Jets specifically, it kind of feels like the Jets need some more. I mean, we need more players like Harrison Phillips. We need more players that are like Nick Folk, that are just flat out adults, that are bought into the coaching staff and, really trying to these guys, bring in guys that are invested into actually turning around the program, as opposed to sulking and pointing the finger and talking about how good they are individually. Alex Anzalone, I think, will be a good addition to this team as far as trying to flip the culture around. Now, Devin Bush is also a free agent. One of my favorite players from afar. I loved him back at Michigan. 5'11", 235 pounds. Coming off a great season. 124 tackles, 3 INTs, 9 tackles for loss. Very good in coverage. Very good at the line of scrimmage. Even though Bush isn't the biggest guy in the world, he's a thumper. I think he'd be coming in from a system like, obviously from Jim Schwartz. There'd be some similarities there from a Jim Schwartz defense to an Aaron Glenn defense, assuming we keep a 4-3. Now, I think Devin Bush makes sense. He would definitely be a lot cheaper than Devin Lloyd. Probably be a little bit more expensive than, a decent, the projection right now is like 3 years, 40 something for Devin Bush. So that would be more expensive than Alex. So, obviously younger, you kind of feel like the runway for Devin Bush's career is a lot longer than Alex Anzalone. Alex feels like a short-term fix. Devin Lloyd, obviously, career building block. You're probably bringing in Devin Lloyd to be that CJ Mosley type of player, but Devin Bush is kind of somewhere in between, right, where you're not getting the ultimate production. No one's talking about Devin Bush as a top 5 linebacker, but he would definitely help come in, solve a lot of issues, and you're not going to have to pay that top tier price point. So Devin Bush, I think, is good enough and well-rounded enough to come in and check a decent amount of boxes for this Jets defense. Now, Leo Chenal from the Kansas City Chiefs is another popular choice because of how many different things he can provide a defense. I mean, you look at Chenal in coverage, he's great. He can hang with tight ends like the best of them. He can rush the passer a little bit. You can move him around. However, I do feel like Leo is better fit for odd man front-based defenses, right? And I think that's why you're seeing him linked to a lot of teams that are going to be running a 3-4. Now, the Jets could still run a 3-4. That's not 100% confirmed. Maybe we'll have an answer at the Combine. Hopefully someone actually asked that question. I think Leo Chenal maybe is better fit for a team like the Buffalo Bills, right? With Jim Leonard, his former college coach, coming in, and there could be some defensive changes, some schematic changes over there in Buffalo. So Chenal's an interesting one, but I feel like he's going to have... what's so weird is like I'll see articles saying like, oh, he's an underrated free agent sleeper, but I just feel like he's like in NFL circles, he's being talked about a lot, and he's super, super, super valued. So yeah, I think Leo would make sense, but I feel like he's going to have a ton of suitors. Now, as far as the defensive line is concerned, there's not much happening with the defensive tackle market. You can argue like a DJ Reader, but that to me feels like more so a rotational piece, which is fine. I'm not saying that we have to sign all these big name guys, of course not, but JFM is someone that, man, does he stand out. Former Jet, loved his time with the Jets. I freaking hated how the Jets moved on from him. They traded him on day 3 of the draft out of nowhere for a future 6th round pick. It just felt so disrespectful. I understand that the NFL is a business, but just with how, JFM was literally talking about it on Twitter afterwards, saying how the Jets offered him nowhere near the deal that the Broncos gave him, and the deal that the Broncos gave him wasn't even that substantial. So it's like, what did the Jets just give you a minimum offer? Like, what is going on? But JFM is someone who, man, really earned a big contract this offseason. He's done such a great job for Denver. He could play in a 3-4, he could play in a 4-3, he could play defensive end, he could play defensive tackle. Man, just a really, really cool player. And whether he signs with the Jets or another team or re-ups with Denver, or wherever he lands, I'm going to be pulling for him. Maybe unless he goes to the Patriots, but no, JFM, like, he's the man. He'll chop it up with Jets fans on Twitter. Like he's so cool. The addition with John Franklin Myers and this Jets defensive line would just give you so much, right? He would give you this player that essentially would stay on the field for a long time. You can play him in different looks, different alignments. Like JFM, again, he's just the man, and I would love to have him back. The problem is his contract projection is quite high. Right now, it's 3 years for $54 million. So we'll see. At 29 years old, coming off a season with 7.5 sacks, we'll see what happens with JFM. But yeah, I would love to have JFM back. If we look at some of the edge rushers, we have two interesting names, two names that I'm not 100% sold on. But Odafe Oweh from the Chargers, someone who was pretty similar to Shamar Stewart, right, where he was a former first-round pick with not a lot of production in college. Like, I remember his final season at Penn State, he was just so physically impressive, but he had 0 sacks, and he was still a first-round pick at edge by Baltimore. First couple seasons with Baltimore, just not really... not really that dominant edge rusher. He gets flipped over to the Chargers and has a career season, 7.5 sacks. Just, you kind of felt like he was the cleanup artist for LA. He had 47 pressures on the season, 38 tackles, 6 tackles for loss. He is projected to be the top edge rusher outside of Trey Hendrickson on the market, but the projection right now for him at 6'5", 265, 4 years, $88 million. That to me just feels a bit rich for what. And I look, I completely get that the Jets have a lot of cap space and whatnot, but it just feels like too much of a bit of a projection for me. I would like to see more consistency from a guy in Oweh before I hand out $80+ million. Again, personally for me, I think I would rather go in a different direction if we're talking $80+ million. I just need more. I would like to see more consistency, right? The Jets cannot afford to bring in high-priced free agents and them have a down season. It's just, it simply cannot happen. And I think Oweh, as much as, the production was on display this season, I just have a fear of, okay, $80 million is not just this throwaway deal. Like if you bring in someone in for $80 million, he better be not only just one of the best players, if not the best player on the defensive side of the football, but he also has to be consistent from a year to year basis. And we haven't really seen that from Oweh up to this point. You kind of feel like it's a projection. Now, the other edge rusher that a lot of people are talking about is Boye Mafe. Now, personally, much like Oweh, it just feels like a bit of a projection for me. If I'm handing out $60, $70, $80 million, I need to have a lot of consistency here. And the thing is with Mafe, he's coming off a season with 2 sacks and 40 pressures, but he was a rotational player for the Seattle Seahawks edge room. And so the fans of football that are really invested into like the higher or maybe more so detailed analytics are saying Mafe's a guy with more experience. If you give him more opportunities to rush the passer, his body type, his athletic profile, it translates into him getting after the quarterback a lot more. But for me, again, if I'm the Jets and if I'm a team in New York with a ton of needs and I'm handing out a $70, $80 million check because Boye Mafe is projected to get over 70, to me, it's just too high. It's too high. Maybe I'm a little old school. I just... the thought of $70 million for a player with coming off a season with 2 sacks and it being considered one of his better years it's just a little risky for me, a little risky for where the Jets are currently at. And what's interesting too about Mafe is even though he's been playing for a couple seasons, he still feels a little raw and he needs to be more refined. Now, he is great against the run and he has a big time motor. I get all that. But for the Jets, if you're looking at the high-priced edge guys, and I'm going to leave Trey Hendrickson out of it just because you feel like at his age, at his price point, he's going to want to go sign on to either a team that he's comfortable with or a top-end contender. A Lions, a Bills, an Eagles, a team like that. The team that he's been linked most to is the Colts because of the relationship with Lou Anarumo at DC. So with Hendrickson, I think I'm going to leave him out, but Boye Mafe, Odafe Oweh, those are the two guys that a lot of people are talking about. A lot of people are getting excited about. But I think, for me, with our position at spot number 2, having JJ and Will McDonald on the roster, I'm totally okay with just going the rotational route, going cheap 1-year deal. Cam Thomas, edge rusher from Cleveland, someone who I'm really high on as the Michael Clemens style of role for this Jets team, who you can sign for less than $8 million. I think I like Cam Thomas. Now let's talk about the safety position, right? This is obviously such a massive position of need. Before we dive into some of the names, though, the available names, I want to throw this idea out there. Could the Jets look into trading for Minkah Fitzpatrick? I was going to do a whole separate video on this, but I was thinking about it. You know, you're a team of the Miami Dolphins with massive cap problems. They have a brand new general manager, a brand new head coach. Minkah's on the trade block. They just released Tyreek Hill, James Daniels, Bradley Chubb. All indications are pointing to the team moving on from Tua. Again, they're trying to completely blow the team up. I feel like the Dolphins could very well be in the mix for the number 1 overall pick next season, based off of how that team is kind of set up and projecting into this upcoming season. If Minkah's on the if Minkah Fitzpatrick's on the trade block, they are not going to be getting anything of serious value. I believe that you can get Minkah Fitzpatrick for a 6th or 7th round pick at this point in time. Now, if you look at the way the Jets coaching staff is set up, Brian Duker, new defensive coordinator, he was the DB coach for the Dolphins last season, working with Fitzpatrick. We also brought in Ryan Slowick from the Dolphins organization. He's our new safety coach. He is working experience with Minkah. Overnight, the Jets can go from literally horrible at the safety position to adding one of the best free safeties in the National Football League. Minkah Fitzpatrick is coming off a great season for the Dolphins. I still feel like he can play at a high level. So the money's one thing, but this is something that I would explore if I'm the Jets. But putting that aside for a second, we look at the amount of free agent names. It's absolutely crazy. There's so many guys that make sense. Let's start with Reed Blankenship from the Eagles, someone who has 4 years of starting experience, someone who came into the Eagles organization as an undrafted free agent from Middle Tennessee State. Definition of a grinder, definition of a hard worker. 9 interceptions over the course of these 4 seasons. He was the starting free safety the last 3 seasons for this Eagles defense. He's been described as a relentless worker, someone who is an absolute professional, someone who is about the team, someone who plays the free safety position with really good instincts and he can fly downhill, someone who has a knack for taking away the football. I like Reed Blankenship a lot. You're not going to have to break the bank to go out and land him. All of a sudden, we've gotten a lot better for, I would say, probably $11 million or less on an annual basis. Not to mention that Blankenship, earning the starting job is one thing, but earning the starting job as a UDFA for a Super Bowl winning defense is a completely different story. We're not talking about, someone that is a practice squad guy and he's playing on a 2-win team, 3-win team. No, we're talking about a UDFA playing for a team, an organization with so much pressure on them to win a Super Bowl year in and year out. He went out and did that while being a productive piece. So Reed Blankenship, I'm all about. We could also take a look at Bryan Cook. Now, Bryan Cook, I would say, is probably the best safety on the market, on the free agency market. Someone who's just so well-rounded. He can play free safety. He can play strong safety. He can help out in run support. He makes plays in the back end. He's one of the best coverage safeties in football. He's someone that doesn't really have a weakness, right? If you are a cover 1 defense, cover 2, cover 3, cover 4, like he doesn't have to come off the field. And that's why he's such an interesting option. And that's why I think he's going to get paid a decent amount, probably $14+ million per season, because he fits anywhere. He fits anywhere. Not to mention he's a vocal leader. He's one of the pivotal pieces for the Spags defense in the back end to help out with communication. If the Jets just want to solve the safety position, you could bring Bryan Cook in. Granted, it would cost a lot, but man, does he just give you so much security, right? He's a physical player. He'll come up and hit. He Super Bowl champion, much like Reed Blankenship. Bryan Cook makes a lot of sense. You also have Coby Bryant from the Seattle Seahawks, right? Another Super Bowl champion here. 6'1", 193 pounds, coming off a season with 4 picks and 7 passes defended against. Now, he was a former corner converted to a safety, and he's not looked back, man. I mean, he's a really, really good safety in the mid part of the field. That's where Coby Bryant shines. That mid center fielder, rangy, sideline to sideline type of guy. Funny enough, he was the corner opposite of Sauce Gardner back at Cincinnati. I remember watching him at the Senior Bowl. Now, I think there are maybe some safer options in this free agency class, but if the Jets are sold on Coby Bryant and what he brings on the defensive side, playing in a really complicated defense, and they like his potential and they still feel like he can get better at the safety position because there's a lot of tread on the tires, I'm not going to argue against it. Coby Bryant would be a huge upgrade in the back end of the defense. We could also talk about, who else? Kam Curl from the LA Rams. Interesting option because you don't really feel, at least for me, I don't really feel like he can be that Kirby Joseph archetype type of player, again, in the back end. And I feel like really that's where the Jets have their biggest problem. You know, you're thinking about like Andre Sisco back there taking his time jogging to the ball carrier, horrible angles to the ball. We need a massive upgrade at that position. And Kam Curl, I kind of view his superpowers up close to the line of scrimmage. He had 2 picks this last season, but he's fantastic against the run. He's a great blitzer. He can cover guys in the slot. He was a former Washington Commander. I like Kam Curl a lot, but he's also projected to get $12+ million per season. And if he's not coming in and checking the biggest box that the Jets need at the safety spot, I don't really know if he's going to be the top option. Maybe I'm wrong, because I still feel like he'd be an upgrade either way. But Kam Curl should be in consideration. We have Jalen Thompson from the Cardinals. And I don't know if he's going to be brought back to Arizona because, yes, they did have a regime change or a head coaching change with Mike LaFleur and Hackett coming in, but they kept Nick Rallis. Rallis could want, if he's going to be running the same Cardinals defense, which I assume he is, because why would you retain him if he was going to try to, if you're going to ask him to do something differently? If you look at that defensive structure, they run a ton of 3 safety sets. And Thompson, with the amount of speed and range that he has and the knack to take the football away, right? 8 interceptions from 2021 to 2023. I just feel like you're going to want to keep a guy like that around. He was a homegrown guy with the Cardinals. I feel like he could be back with Arizona. We also have Nick Cross from Indianapolis, who, funny enough, Frank Reich drafted him, and not only just drafted him in the 3rd round, but they traded up to go land Nick Cross. So, of course, Frank Reich is only the OC with us, but I really wonder, could Cross come in as that super athletic, super rangy free safety who can make impactful plays over and over and over again for this Jets defense? I'm intrigued with Nick Cross for sure. Now, last but not least, I wanted to talk a little bit about the cornerback position, something that I think on paper isn't really the biggest need. Like Madden perspective wise, if we're just like looking at the depth chart, we're like, okay, it's good enough. Zaire Thomas going in a year or 2, Jarvis Brownlee, Brandon Stevens, cool. But if we have one bit of adversity, whether it's someone regresses, right? Brandon Stevens doesn't look as good as last year. Zaire Thomas doesn't look as good. We have, someone regresses. They look worse. Maybe someone gets hurt. Maybe someone isn't really vibing with Brian Duker, the new defensive coordinator, and he's having a tougher time. All of a sudden, corner becomes a massive need. So coming off a season where the defensive production was downright horrible, coming off a season where the coverage was bad, as well as not having or not recording any interceptions, which is the first time that's been done in NFL history, I don't want to sit there and look at the Jets and all of these free agent corners and say, the New York Jets won't be calling. The New York Jets won't be watching any tape on any of these guys. I think you can definitely make an argument that the Jets could go out and sign a corner one, just to have, boom, we know who this guy is. We're gonna lock him in. He's gonna follow the number 1. He's going to be our guy. He fits the system. We have the money to spend. Let's just go make it happen. And all of a sudden, that corner room looks a lot more deep. So the first corner that I want to talk about here is someone who I feel like makes a ton of sense from a systematic fit. It's Alontae Taylor, former Tennessee Volunteer, someone who is long, someone who is big, 6'1", 200 pounds, 2 interceptions this past season, but he's a great tackler, great run stopper. He can play in the slot. I love his acceleration, his bursts in short areas. Boom. Like when he puts his foot in the ground, he can change direction really, really quickly. I think he moves really well for his size. That was one of the biggest, or that was my personal favorite thing about Sauce Gardner, right? You don't see corners at that size move so fluently. Most of the time, those guys are stiff. Their hip fluidity isn't as seamless as you want it to be. But Alontae Taylor moves really, really well for his size. I think someone like that could really help this defense, and he's also been described as a great leader as well. Great in the locker room. Now, another corner that a lot of people have been talking about is Riq Woolen. I was actually reading an article the other day that had they're kind of doing like the predictions on where all the I think it was the top 50 free agents best team fits, and Riq Woolen was named with the Jets. Now, I think Woolen is going to get a lot of money, and the first kind of team that just jumped to my mind when I was thinking about team fits for Woolen was the Raiders, because they have so much cap space. Man, and do they need help at corner? Like I do feel like they'll bring back Eric Stokes, but Riq Woolen to the Raiders, I feel like makes a lot of sense. I could also see the Titans being involved too, with Robert Saleh, but Woolen from a length, from a size standpoint, is humongous. He's 6'4", 210 pounds, long, lengthy. His wingspan is insane too, and you see that on tape, right? His ability to just stick his hand in there at the last second and deflect a pass. Like, he can make so many more plays on the football compared to some of these corners with shorter arms. I mean, it is you still feel like Riq Woolen, who jumped on the scene early with all of the interceptions, but someone who can play in man or zone. You still feel like he has so much room to get better. Like, I don't feel like Woolen is a complete finished product at this point. So Woolen is interesting. I just feel like he's going to get paid a massive amount. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Antonio Cromartie, because he takes some risks, has some super successful plays, but then will get burned by taking those risks. Also, he's been flagged a lot. But we also have Jaylen Watson from the Chiefs, someone who makes a lot of plays up close to the line of scrimmage, great tackler, very high defensive IQ, success in production, in press man coverage, just overall a really smart player. I wonder if Jaylen Watson could be in the mix for the Jets, but he's also projected to get a lot of money. And also, too, another team that I'm wondering, do they maybe go all in with a corner, is the Bengals. The Bengals really need help at that position. I wonder. I'm looking at Cincinnati from afar, right? They're not bringing Hendrickson back up to this point, right? I wonder if they bring in a corner. And then the last one is Amik Robertson. More so the depth piece. If you feel great about Azari Thomas, if Brian Duker and all these guys are like, no, AZ's our guy, he's our corner too, we love him, he's going to be a for sure starter, and we just need to get that insurance piece, let's go out and get Robertson, right? Under $5 million per season, knows Aaron Glenn, knows Duker, can play on the inside, can play on the outside, gritty physical personality. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Obviously, I didn't rattle off every single free agent that I feel like would upgrade this team, because quite frankly, a lot of players would come in and upgrade this defense. But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Thanks so much. And as always, go Jets.